bridging the digital divide at home and also at school. How do we ensure that all kids keep pace with modern technology? For the next few minutes, we'll discuss that. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Robert Tranum. Joining me is Keith Krueger, CEO of the Consortium for School Networking. Keith, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Robert.
So that's the billion-dollar question, is how do we bridge this digital divide at home but also in school, and how do we keep this conversation going, and how do we hold everybody accountable?
Well, and I think that we've actually made some progress, particularly at schools, getting them connected. In the last 20 years since the Telecommunications Act was passed, we've had a program where when you pay your telephone bill, it actually makes sure that classrooms are connected. But we really need to have a new conversation. And I think in too many places, we've been kind of having an old conversation about should we invest in technology?
So who facilitates that new conversation, Keith?
I think that really communities need to have that. And it starts certainly with elected officials, with school boards, with the superintendent, talking about what does learning look like today.
Here's an interesting statistic that's very alarming. Please correct me if I'm wrong, and I hope I am wrong. 27 million families in this country are without a home computer or connection to the internet.
Yeah.
How can that be in 2012, 2013?
Well, and I think it's very troubling because if you're a teacher and you want to do learning that involves using technology, a lot of teachers say, well, we can't do it because it's not fair. But we have to start really reframing that, and I think there are some new efforts at doing that.
And who do you think, I'm going to ask the same question but a little bit differently, who do you think should lead that conversation? Is that parents? Is that kids? Is that community leaders? Or is that a combination of everyone?
I think it is everyone in that...
So not the government?
Well, I think the government has a role to play. They do. I think to get to the poorest of the poor, we're never going to get there unless we have the political will in order to do that.
I'm going to split hairs here for a moment because I think it's important for our viewers at home perhaps to understand this or perhaps understand it better. And that is, let's say hypothetically I have no computer in my home whatsoever, but I have a PDA. I have a cheap PDA that has access to the internet and I play games with it, I perhaps pay bills. Technically, am I considered to be unwired or am I wired to the internet?
Well, it's interesting from an educational perspective, about 85% of kids have an internet-enabled mobile device, and half of those, in fact, are smartphones. But most school districts, 65% of them, prohibit those devices in classrooms.
Oh, really?
So we have a policy problem.
Interesting. That's a perfect segue to my next question, is because how do we define what a computer is? I know this is kind of a silly question, but it kind of really isn't. How do we define what a computer is these days? Because growing up in my day and age, in the Stone Ages, a computer was literally the monitor, the keyboard, and so forth. But I'm not exactly sure, Keith, that's what it is today.
It's not. I don't know that we even need to talk about computers.
Sure.
We need to talk about devices.
That's correct.
And there's lots of different devices, and kids have lots of them. Now, not every kid has a device, and so you need equity programs that provide those. But, a quarter of kids in middle school have a tablet. Half of the kids in high school have a smartphone, but we're banning those in most places.
And I believe because there's a stigma involved that perhaps this tablet is nothing more than just a toy or it's a game. And so the question becomes is who facilitates that conversation of educating our educators that this is really not a toy?
Well, in most of the policies that were created around mobile devices, cell phones, were started back in the early 2000s.
Sure.
And that was because
that was so
cell
2000 ago.
Cell phones were being used for drug traffic. And
interesting.
So policymakers said, well, we would never want that there.
I see. So it sounds like a forced conversation needs to happen with everyone concerned to basically look at the definition and maybe redefine what these things are very quickly.
And I think that the decision is not to ban the technology, but responsible use.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you.
Always. Of course, thank you for joining us for this edition of Comcast Newsmakers. I'm Robert Tranum. Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you next time. Take care.